Hey everyone, my name is Eric Hopkins, aka JEL. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, AEW Dynamite for April 10th, 2024. Not my favorite episode of AEW Dynamite. A lot of it has to do with the whole drama that's going on right now with the whole, all in footage that was released here on this episode. So, let's get into the show. But before we do, I wanted to do a special shout out and my condolences and prayers to the family and friends of Akibono, the legendary Yokozuna sumo wrestler, has passed away at the age of 54. Many of you may not remember him, but those of you who do probably remember him from WrestleMania 21 when he went one on one with the Big Show in a sumo match in that show. So yeah, like I said, it's just a sad thing to see. 54 years of age is way too young, especially now that I'm getting a little older and I'm in my early 40s now, and I realize how young 54 actually is. So yeah, I mean, obviously he was a much heavier set guy. He was a Yokozuna, which I think he weighed in at like over 500 pounds. So yeah, that's definitely it's a hard thing to see. But definitely take care of yourself, everybody, because obviously, I mean, I'm preaching to myself on this one. I definitely need to be better about certain things for sure. But yeah, I'm very sad to hear this about Akibono. Great legend in the sumo world for sure, and he will be missed, no doubt about it. All right, AEW Dynamite. Like I said, not my favorite show that AEW's ever done, partially because of the footage, but at the same time, it just felt like everything else didn't really, matter at the end of the day after this footage aired, because it was just like it took away from so much the rest of the show. The show obviously had a pretty good card, all things considered, I thought, in my opinion. I mean, I was looking forward to a lot of the matches and stuff, especially the TNT Championship, which actually over delivered, in my opinion. I thought it was actually really the best thing on the show, which we'll get into in just a second. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just didn't feel like AEW tonight. It felt like this was all a huge distraction to the show itself, and it didn't come off in the best of ways. No doubt about it. So, but yeah, the show started off basically Samoa Joe was coming out to the ring to face Dustin Rhodes, who, again, in my opinion, this whole match with Dustin Rhodes, it just felt like AEW's like, oh, let's capitalize on the fact that Cody Rhodes, Dustin's brother, just won the WWE title at WrestleMania. So we'll put Dustin in a world title match here. So it kind of felt a little, cheap, in my opinion, from the jump. But when Joe was coming down to the ring, he got jumped, no pun intended, about by Swerve Strickland on the way down to the ring, and Swerve Strickland ended up putting him through a table that was set up, that Joe set up actually, to get Swerve with, but Swerve countered and put him through the table himself. So early on, it put this title match in question about whether or not it was actually going to happen on the show. Turns out it did at the end of the show, but to be honest, I would have been just fine if it had not taken place at all. I just don't know if we necessarily needed this. Nobody in their right mind expected Dustin Rhodes to win the world title. But I mean, all due respect to the natural Dustin Rhodes, I just felt like this was just a cheap ploy to kind of capitalize on something that was happening in the other company, and that's not what AEW needs to be focusing on right now, in my opinion. They need to be focusing on themselves, especially after this footage that aired tonight, no doubt. After this opening segment, we had the aforementioned TNT Championship match between Adam Copeland and Penta El Zero Miedo. I think I pronounced that right. But yeah, I mean, this match was probably, like I said, the best thing on the show. These two guys had great chemistry with one another. Even Adam Copeland, who who's basically been a workhorse ever since he came into AEW. He was pulling off moves that really went toe to toe with Penta, doing a flying head scissors at one point, doing multiple leapfrogs. I mean, this is something you don't normally see Adam Copeland doing. But it was fun to see, because he was a great base for Penta's high flying offense. These guys just worked well together. It was actually surprising to me that it went off so well. There was a weird spot early on in the match where this graphic popped up on the screen. It was like, I don't know what was going on with this. I didn't know if it was going to lead to something or if it was just some sort of production faux pas, which AEW's had issues with in the past, where like certain things will just pop up on the screen for a little bit and then go away, and then you never hear anything else about it. So AEW's got to really start clamping down on these mistakes. It's like we'll have audio issues, like the microphone didn't work for Copeland like a week or so ago. Things like that, where or the musical won't hit at the right time, or it'll be too quiet, or we'll just get random graphics like this on the screen. It's like, what are we doing here? So I don't know what's going on over there at AEW. A lot of people are talking about how it's not structured. It's got no leadership. I don't know if I go that far. The structure maybe. I mean, I mean they've had better shows, so I don't understand like why just randomly all of a sudden we have these problems. I mean, the company is 5 years old now. It's at a point to where you've got to start or stop, I should say, making excuses for them. They've got to start getting this stuff corrected because these little things like this, it's just like it just makes it seem like they're not putting any effort into it, and it definitely comes off as an indie show in a lot of people's eyes, and that's why they're not getting more views, and that's why the ratings have kind of fallen off a little bit. Yeah, I know the WB put out a statement that they get 4 million viewers a week or so with their AEW programming, which is great to see. But at the same time, a lot of people don't necessarily buy it. And at the same, the ratings, in my opinion, like I say, don't matter as long as WBD is happy with it. That's all I care about. But this sort of stuff has just got to stop. But like I said, the match was good. Adam Copeland ends up winning the match here, obviously retaining his TNT Championship. And then, of course, he gets jumped from behind by Brody King with a distraction from Julia Hart, which brings out Willow Nightingale to come out and make the save, which is interesting to see a woman save a man. You don't normally see that very often, but nothing wrong with it. It was just kind of a different way of kind of going about it. But it definitely set up a match between Willow Nightingale and Adam Copeland versus Julia Hart and Brody King. I don't know if it's next week or on Collision, but either way, it's coming up here soon. So they definitely set that up a little bit later, which could be fun. I have no doubt about that. And that'll obviously further the TBS Championship feud between Willow and Julia Hart as well. And Mercedes Monet may even get involved in that. We'll have to wait and see. And after this, we had the aforementioned biggest thing on the show, which kind of drug the show down, in my opinion. And that was, of course, the all in footage that would be revealed by the Young Bucks. Before we even got to that, we got this shot of Tony Schiavone on commentary right before they threw to the back for the Young Bucks to go through all this. Tony Schiavone definitely had the look on his face of a guy who knew that they were about to air something that they did not agree with. Yeah, Schiavone looked like he was definitely thinking, why are we doing this at this point? And to be honest, after seeing the footage, I kind of agree with Tony Schiavone if that is in fact the thing that he was thinking. Um, I just don't know why we were going about this. Like, you know, this is a hard situation for me because I don't like talking about this stuff. I mean, I as a wrestling fan, I don't want to deal with all this negativity and the toxicity from the fan base. I didn't even get on X last night or any social media during or after this show because I was like, I know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to have people on one side who is one way and people who are on the other side who is another. People who love Punk are going to defend whatever Punk did. People who hate Punk are going to find reasons to hate on him, and people who hate WWE are going to hate WWE. People who love AEW are going to defend AEW. And look, I love both companies, right? I want both companies to succeed. I want all the wrestlers to succeed. I don't want any drama. I hate the negativity. I hate the toxicity in the internet wrestling community. It's absolutely toxic, and all it does is just make things worse as fans. And fans don't want to, when they catch wind of all this, me included, it kind of makes you not want to watch the show. So after I saw the footage that aired here, I just felt like the rest of the AEW Dynamite show was it felt pointless. It felt meaningless, and it felt like it shouldn't have even been on the air. And I just did not want to watch it. And and that's nothing against AEW's actually booking or the matches they were doing. I mean, I usually love AEW. AEW saved professional wrestling for me because WWE for a lot of years was just straight up trash and garbage. But now WWE is starting to become a lot better in their booking and their storytelling. So with WWE this white hot, you can't be putting on shows that are just this not that it's being ruined by something that happened 8 months ago at an all-in scrum or a scrap or whatever you want to call this. Uh, but yeah, I mean the footage pretty much just showed basically what CM Punk said on the Ariel Helwani MMA Hour podcast. I mean, he said that now there are to be fair, when Punk originally talked about this, he talked about how Jack Perry approached him. That Jack Perry kind of instigated this, and Punk shoved him away, and this sort of thing. So there were certain things that in CM Punk's story originally that this footage kind of debunked. But from what I could tell, CM Punk said on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani this last week during WrestleMania week, That part he really didn't lie about. I mean, Punk did walk up to Perry. That part was different compared to what Punk originally said. And then, it looked like they had some words. Now, again, this footage had no audio. It is security footage, so most security footage does not have audio to it. So you can't say, well, AEW took the audio out of it. That's not necessarily true. Uh, and yes, we don't know exactly what was said between the two guys. A lot of people have stated that Jack Perry had told I guess Punk had gone up to him about the Crimea River line about the using real glass, and Jack Perry possibly may have said, well, why don't you do something about it? And that's what set Punk off. I don't know. We have no idea what instigated this, who instigated what, but from the video footage at least, it definitely shows that CM Punk was the first one to become physical with it. Jack Perry was kind of messing with his hair. He had his hands up, and when he had his hands up like this, Punk threw the first shove in his face, or he tried to punch him in the face. It's kind of unclear exactly what he did, but he did throw the first swing, so to speak, whether he pushed or shoved. Either way, he had an arm extended going into Jack Perry's face, which then led to Jack Perry backing up, and then looked like Perry might have kind of went a little toward Punk's waist, and Punk got him in like a chokehold, which only lasted a couple seconds before Samoa Joe, Jerry Lynn, and many others got involved and broke this up. And after Jack Perry was being pulled away, Punk did do another swing. This time looked like more like a punch. And then after Jack Perry was moved to the side by Joe, you do see Jerry Lynn and a few other producers holding back CM Punk, you can't really see Tony Khan in the footage on the right side here, but there's a bunch of monitors and Tony Khan is sitting behind the monitors, and CM Punk does lunge toward Tony Khan, and this is supposedly where CM Punk had told Tony Khan that you're a clown, this is a shit show, and I quit. Then of course Khan told Punk to later go out to the ring and do his match, and then after that, he was fired later on after advisement from Brian Danielson and many others in the company. So it does show him lunge at the owner. Now, again, as I said in my WrestleMania review at the very end, I did some discussion about this before the footage aired. There's always three sides to the story, right? You got Punk's side in this case, and then you got AEW's side, and then the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? That's usually the way it goes with every side of the story in the world. There's always a third. There's always a third side, and that's the truth that's somewhere in the middle. And like I said, there are certain things about that Punk had maybe said back in the day, and some of his representation had said that was not true. It definitely shows Punk instigated the physicality of this. Whether or not it honestly doesn't matter what was said. No matter what, CM Punk never should have instigated the physicality of it and never should have gone after another employee. That right there is a fireable offense. So AEW, it's not to mention CM Punk, this is his second offense where he got into a physical altercation with some of the talent and the roster in the back. Obviously, everybody remembers the CM Punk brawl in or brawl out with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks as well. That happened, the infamous incident where Punk's eating muffins at the press conference. Who, to Punk's credit, did say that he regretted the way he handled the press conference. He didn't say anything about the brawl. But at the same time, so in that case, I do believe AEW had justification in firing CM Punk. That's the second time of doing this. Whether this looked like it was a minor incident or not, you can't be fighting with your employees. If you think that Punk, didn't do anything wrong and you think that AEW was weak in letting him go over this small scrap, go to your job and see if you can, go shove and start choking an employee and not get involved or not get fired, I should say. So to that point, I do think AEW was right in firing CM Punk. You just can't be doing that. I'm sorry, you can't. That's indefensible. Whether or not Punk feels like he was in the right or not, Punk did do the wrong thing there. However, I am also going to go after AEW here because Tony Khan also come out and said that he feared for his life for the actions that CM Punk did when he, I guess, lunged at him there. Now, Punk did lunge at him, and we don't know exactly what was said. We have reports of what was said, but it only lasted maybe a total of 5 seconds tops. Now, there are reports out there also that this was not the entire incident. This was the incident. This is a part of the incident that AEW wanted to show, and maybe there's other things that happened that we are not aware of. That's a possibility. However, Tony Khan did say that he feared for his life, and if this was the only thing that he feared for his life for, that makes Tony Khan look a little weak, a little childish, because that is not. At no point during this was Tony Khan was his life threatened at all. Not saying Punk should have lunged at him. You can't lunge at your boss. You can't do that either. But at the same time, maybe that was a bit of an over exaggeration on Tony Khan's part. So I got to call balls and strikes here and call it how I see it. So again, this all just felt. This is obviously a response to some of the digs that WWE and Triple H and Pat McAfee and Jade Cargill and especially CM Punk over the WrestleMania week here. I know Tony Khan talked like it was going to further the storyline for the Young Bucks and the FTR tag team title match coming up at AEW Dynasty, which they did try to tie it into everything with the Young Bucks saying that the reason why they lost FTR at All In was because they were distracted by this incident and they weren't able to put their full focus on that match. So it was a little bit of a weak explanation, but they were at least trying to use this to further that storyline. But you can't convince me that this footage was not released solely because of the fact that WWE had been digging at AEW all week long at WrestleMania, which, again, as I said before, AEW has all the right in the world to respond to those digs. Absolutely. However, I just don't know if this really accomplished much for AEW. This footage, if anything, it'll only give AEW detractors more ammo for them online, no doubt about it. So I just don't see what the point was in actually showing all this because at the end of the day, it's only going to make AEW look worse in a lot of fans' eyes. I can see why AEW wanted to air it though, because just to kind of put it out there and give it to fans like, hey, this is what happened. Make up your own mind. We're moving on. And hopefully we're at a point now with all this being shown that it is now completely out there and we can move on from this finally. Obviously, most fans probably won't. They'll be talking about this forever, and it's just a toxic thing. But my hope is, I know for me personally, we got the truth now of what actually happened at this particular incident for the most part. Like I said, there may be some things we've not been shown, but I'm over it at this point. I really am. I can see both sides in this. They both have legitimate arguments, I suppose. And like I said, some people are going to say Punk told the truth. Some people are going to say Punk lied because there are certain things that he told the truth about. There are certain things he might have embellished. Same with AEW. They probably embellished a lot of things, like Tony Khan's life being in danger. But at the same time, like I said, at the end of the day, you can't be fighting your fellow employee at your job. You just can't. So in that case, I totally understand AEW firing him, especially after his second altercation, and he had one just previously before that. So they gave him a pass on that first one. They decided not to give him a pass on this second one. So in that regard, I understand it. So I mean, and like I said, CM Punk has got a history of this sort of thing. If he doesn't get his way, and some people think he's got an ego problem, a lot of people are just waiting for that, ticking time bomb to go off in WWE as well. So we'll just have to wait and see what he does over there. Hopefully, it'll go better for them. But yeah, it just didn't paint AEW in a great light. So I just, like I said, don't understand the point in it. I hope that, like I said, that we can all just move on from this now and focus on our shows because WWE and AEW in general, like I said, pro wrestling is in a great place right now. You don't need to be doing these, childish barbs. Like I said, I don't care if you want to take shots at each other, which we'll talk about Will Ospreay in just a second. But at the same time, if you're going to do all this stuff, you got to do it in a way to, it's not going to be this serious because people are sick of watching this stuff. If you want to, trade, jokey jarbs or jabs at each other, that's fine. But yeah, this stuff, it just kind of ruined the show for me. I was not feeling it this week for sure. All right. After this, we did, like I said, had a Will Ospreay interview with Renee Paquette out on the ramp. This was funny in one aspect. Will Ospreay come out, and then again, to mention the whole Triple H line, where I guess he at WrestleMania did an interview with Pat McAfee, and on the Pat McAfee show, he said that all the free agents, that we didn't get in WWE, they wanted to go to other companies that, basically, gave them more time off, less working dates and things like that. And he said, if you're not down for the grind, we don't want you here in WWE. Which, again, in my opinion, is kind of silly because, I mean, the wrestlers who are going to AEW and other companies for less dates is because they care about their families and they want to be with their families and they're probably getting paid a little more than maybe in WWE would offer them as well. So, I mean, it makes sense for them financially, it makes sense for them from a family standpoint. So I have no problem with like guys like Will Ospreay or Kazuchika Okada or Mercedes Moné going to an AEW because that does make sense for them and their families. But Triple H obviously he came off as bitter in the Pat McAfee interview. So he threw that shot out there, and he didn't name Will Ospreay or anybody in particular, but he did basically was talking about free agents that they don't have in AEW that they or in WWE that they didn't get. So that did imply Will Ospreay. So Will Ospreay come out and said, he wanted to address Brian Danielson, obviously going into Dynasty, which they need to do a little bit more build of. Hopefully, next week on the Go Home Show in Indianapolis, they will do some build for the Danielson match with Will Ospreay. But in this particular interview, he mentioned, the one who's talking about being, not grinding, in the business. He said he for somehow these reports kind of got tied to Ospreay, so Ospreay wanted to address it. And he said the guy who said this is only in the position he's in WWE because he was grinding up on the boss's daughter. So that was funny. Like I said, if you want to take shots at other companies, I got no problem with it. AEW's done it. WWE did it all last week. So you can't expect AEW again not to respond. So this is just, it's childish. Yes, it's petty. Absolutely. But it's entertaining and from a standpoint, if you want to just, if you can look past all the drama and all that stuff. So it is entertaining. But again, I don't know if it's the best thing for your company. And in both cases, WWE doesn't need to do it. AEW really don't need to do it. I hope after this week we just can stop for a while because it's just like I said, it's not helping any company out. It's only putting a black mark on the industry at this point. Obviously, and Renee's acting a bit here. A lot of people are saying that Renee looked uncomfortable. But she's probably going, well, he said it, there's not much I can do about it. But at the same time, I mean, it was a funny line. I enjoyed it. I laughed, and it was a good promo from Will Ospreay. So take it for what you will, I suppose. After that, we had the 6-man. Like I said, after this, I kind of, the show just kind of took a nosedive for me just because part of me just didn't care. I was just so, disenfranchised with it at this point. We had a 6-man tag, though, a trios match with Hook, Chris Jericho, Katsuyori Shibata versus Shane Taylor Productions or Promotions with the new member of Anthony Ogogo, who makes his return to AEW here. At the end of the match here, we had Leo Moriarty get the pinfall over Shibata when Jericho and Hook could not get along with each other. Obviously, Jericho pulled Hook off the apron when he was going for a tag, which made no sense from Jericho's standpoint. Like, why? Unless you're intentionally trying to sabotage Hook. Now that may be where it's going. But if you're actually going to be a good teammate, and Jericho just wanted the tag and was being selfish again, I guess you could it furthers the feud between him and Hook, but it's like it made no sense for Jericho to do that if he wanted to help his team win. Shibata eats the pin here, which is interesting to say the least, but good for Leo Moriarty to further him as a character. Hook and Jericho is not going to last very long. So get your Lion Hook shirts now. It's probably not going to last very long. So we'll have to see where all this goes. But like I said, I just wasn't feeling the show after this, no doubt about it. We had Kazuchika Okada in action. He basically beat up a jobber. So after the match, Pac made his way down to the ring to confront Okada. Okada accepted his challenge for a match at AEW Dynasty on the mic, and that's when the Young Bucks showed up and attacked Pac before he could get to the ring. FTR arrived to give the Bastard an assist, again, kind of furthering their tag team tournament final storyline here. I mean, at least this was building a little bit to AEW Dynasty, so I was happy to see that on this show, especially after everything that went on. And to be fair, AEW Dynasty is going to be a great pay-per-view in a couple weeks. Hopefully nobody will be talking about this whole footage ordeal because Dynasty and AEW in general always puts on really good pay-per-views. A lot of times better than night one of WrestleMania for sure. So like I said, people just need to focus on the positive here and actually focus on building their show. AEW weekly shows as of late has not always been the greatest. Now in March, I thought they had a really good month. But last couple weeks has not been their best foot here, and this was a step down once again. I'm hoping that the shows will continue to improve and get better. Like I said, AEW just needs to focus on them, and like I said, WWE needs to focus on them too. I'm not one of those guys that says, "Oh, AEW needs to keep WWE out of their mouth," because technically both companies need to keep their names out of their mouth. But if you're going to shoot jabs at each other, fine. But at the same time, you probably shouldn't need to be worrying about what the other show is doing as much and just focus on what you're doing. That is the way to do it. And I understand that sentiment online as well. We had the Tony Storm Charleston Championship Champagne Toast, say that 5 times fast, to Thunder Rosa, which pretty much broke down pretty quickly. It devolved into her throwing a drink in Thunder Rosa's face. This played out a lot quicker than expected and felt like a segment that could have been a lot longer any other week. Mariah May looked confused as she made her way to the ring for her match because, I mean, Tony Storm took a shot of champagne and gave her a kiss as she made her way to the ring. Now, Deonna Purrazzo come out here to kind of defend Thunder Rosa, but then kind of got shoved away for her efforts. So Deonna Purrazzo was like, screw you, I'm out of here. So again, they're just kind of playing this feud between these ladies. I don't know exactly where it's going to go. Obviously, with the Thunder Rosa match, I don't know how Deonna Purrazzo is going to fall into that. It seems I thought her feud was kind of over with Tony Storm, but I guess hers and Thunder Rosa is just beginning. Mariah May's match with Anna Jay was pretty quick here. Mariah May was able to pick up the victory after Anna Jay was in control for a little bit, but Mariah May used a counter to pin her. Anna Jay then applied the Queen Slayer and choked May out until Mina Shirakawa from Stardom made the save, which I again kind of played off of Ring of Honor last week, where Mina Shirakawa and Anna Jay had a match as well. And I think Tony Storm even got into the face of Mina Shirakawa at a Stardom show, if I'm not mistaken. It's talked about how the Forbidden Door is always open, so they could be setting up that with Tony Storm coming up here before too long. Forbidden Door 3, I think, is coming to us before too much longer. So yeah, a lot of this did make some narrative sense going forward. We'll see where they go with the Mina Shirakawa. I mean, Mina Shirakawa grabbed a couple champagne bottles or champagne glasses herself and made her own toast to Mariah May, laying a big kiss on her in the middle of the ring, right in the front of the hard camera. She definitely found that without any training for the Performance Center. Yeah, I mean this interesting to say the least. We got all these ladies kissing each other on screen. Yeah, it's very interesting to say the least. But yeah, I don't know exactly where this is going to go, but I imagine it's leading somewhere at Forbidden Door moving forward after AEW Dynasty. So at the end of the show here, we had Samoa Joe versus Dustin Rhodes. Dustin Rhodes in an eliminator match for the AEW World Championship. I thought they billed this as an World Championship match in general, but I guess it was an eliminator. So that means Dustin Rhodes, if he gets the win, he gets a World Championship match against Samoa Joe. But of course, that did not happen anyway. At the end of the match, there was a spot where Samoa Joe tried to use a chain on Dustin Rhodes. The ref took it from him, but Joe was able to use the belt as a weapon behind his back to get the win. After the match, he choked out Dustin Rhodes until Swerve Strickland showed up to make the save. He delivered a kick to the head of Samoa Joe out of nowhere. Then Swerve then picked up the chain and used it to punch Joe in the face. The show ended with Swerve holding up the belt as Joe looked on angrily. So yeah, again, by this point in the show, I was pretty well checked out of this, and so I just wasn't feeling it for sure. But it did, like I said, it built further and it furthered the feud for AEW Dynasty coming up here in about another week and a half or so. So in that regard, it did its job. But again, this whole show just felt minuscule in comparison to what was happening with the footage that they released. So at the end of the day, the show was okay, I guess. It's definitely wasn't a good show in my opinion. Like I said, the whole footage thing just brought the show down for me. I know I've been preaching that at nauseum here, but at the same time, it just really walloped the intensity and the excitement that I had for the show. Not saying it wasn't a bad show when it comes to the booking and some of the matches that happened, but I outside of the TNT match, I really wasn't enthralled with anything on the show. It just it did not do AEW any favors in my opinion. So I understand the criticism that they're getting online. I still think AEW is a good show to watch. I still think it's a good company. I think that they're trying to do some good things over there. Tony Khan is a nice guy. Tony Khan gets a lot of flack for maybe some of his booking decisions and things like that, which I don't always agree with. I think Tony Khan does a pretty good job at booking these shows, all things considered. He knows his wrestling in and out. He's a wrestling encyclopedia. He definitely deserves more credit than he gets. And as he says, to be AEW is to be under constant attack, which is why I feel like sometimes he feels like he needs to do things like the footage that he released tonight. He needs to maybe kind of man up a little bit and not be swayed by some of the public opinion as much. But at the same time, I understand why he feels the way he does because he's only trying to do a good thing. And to be honest, AEW is a good thing for pro wrestling. And if you're not appreciating that, I don't know if you're looking at pro wrestling the proper way. If you think that WWE is the only way to do things, that is clearly not the case. I think you've got to be able to do things other ways as well. Because if there's only one company in the world that's only going to hurt the business as a whole. And I think it's a good thing for AEW to be around because it's just better for the business. So, yeah, like I said, not my favorite show, but I hope it will be better in the weeks to come. But what did you guys think about AEW? What did you guys think about the footage that was shown from All In, the scrap, as it were? I wouldn't call it a brawl, but yeah, like I said, both sides have some truth to it. There's usually a lot of truth in the middle. So now we've got a little bit more in regards to that. So I hope that we can all move on now. That's what I'm hoping. And we'll just get better shows moving forward from both companies. So we'll see how that goes. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And until my next video, guys, take care. God bless.